In this interview, I talked to Elizabeth, and what I'd like for you to focus on in this interview is how Elizabeth started small. And what she did was that she essentially accumulated exercise wins over time. She started with walking. That started to feel like a routine. She added in strength training. That started to feel like a routine. And then she started noticing changes in her body. So she found something that was fun, and she started slow, and she accumulated wins. And what I also want you to listen for is how she formed a social network that helped her stay consistent and then probably also help motivate other people. So today I'm talking to Elizabeth, who happens to be one of the first people that I actually spoke with when I started at Sequence. And we were just talking a second ago, and what I'm really hoping is that you would be able to share, just starting out with a little bit of your background with exercise.
I've always struggled with exercise as far as picking what worked best for me. I've kind of gone up and down for a lot of years, and the most consistent I found was weightlifting. That has just been my go-to, and it seems to work the best for my body. I've tried a few other things that were a little too intense, and I didn't have great results. It almost put my body in more stress than it needed to be. So through this process, I started off about a year ago on the gentler side, just started walking. And I think that's when I met you, is that I was already walking a lot.
Yep.
And then you had me up my game little by little.
Yep.
And just even bringing dumbbells with me to the park that I was walking at. That was like the first step. And now those 10-pound dumbbells I can't do anything with. They're too light.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I've seen this in real time because you'll tag me on these stories. So what I'm kind of hearing too is that part of your path towards success was incremental. So slowly, and I talk to so many people that say, I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to go to Barry's boot camp or Orange Theory. I'm going to do it 5 times per week.
Right.
They do it for 2 weeks, and
that's it. They get burned out.
And that's it. But I've literally seen you go from just getting started to the water bottles in the driveways to the 10-pound weights to the full equipment. So what do you think? This sounds like this is different than in the past. So what do you think made you successful this time?
I think actually seeing progress. So the big difference in my journey this time, other than being sober for a year,
Congratulations.
Was recording everything I was doing. And that was big for me because I was very anti sharing that with anyone. So I didn't really share my sobriety journey for a while until recently, but sharing my workouts just with other moms. Little by little, it was very incremental, but just that I'm out here walking every day. And then I added a weight vest one time, and everyone's like, what's that for? And just, it kind of progressed in its own little way. But being able to look back even now from January, how my body has changed. And I can see that in my videos. I can see that in the still shots. That keeps me going.
Yeah.
I can pause my time lapse and actually see muscle definition like that.
Incredible.
Right there.
Incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's been the biggest change as far as looking back at my journey, not just before and after pictures, but the actual progress.
Yeah. You found what you liked. You picked the right pace to progress over time. And I really think that if anyone can exercise consistently for 6 months, that's when they'll start to see these differences, but it's hard to get to that point.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring something up because I think you demonstrate it perfectly. So I've probably talked to you about this before, but I said this to other people, but I think the gold standard for motivation for exercise is when it becomes a part of who you are. And there was some research that said that the people that actually post their workouts on social media, of course, it's not like, oh, look at me. But the people that are demonstrating, hey, I'm an exerciser and putting it out there, they're more likely to also score high on like exercise identity scales. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience with putting it online, and maybe what did people like? Did that help other people?
Yes. So that was one of my pushing things that happened in January when I just was like, I'm just going to post it. Let's just do it and see what happens. And I had so many other moms in my same scenario who just needed that little bit of a push. And if I started doing it every day, I felt like it was holding me accountable.
Yeah.
Because I knew people were looking for that. And I really haven't had any negative feedback. And I thought I was going to be that person like, look at me. And I didn't want that.
Yeah.
And it's been the total opposite. It's really been encouraging. Like my TikTok, I have so many people that regularly follow me now.
Yeah.
And we push each other. I have found other people that work out the same way, you know, and we're like, all right, what are you doing today? Are you doing legs? Are you doing arms? And it's really been a good motivator. And I didn't think it was going to be that way. I don't know if that's like an old school social media fear.
Yeah.
But even just a small group of moms who I didn't realize how much I needed them to be watching to keep me going, you know. But even just to encourage rest days, because I think you and I talked about that at one point, that
recently
I was struggling with making sure I have my rest days, and prioritizing it, you know, and not trying to be feeling shameful for doing it. So
I want to go back to a couple of things, but what you just said there, I think that the people that are the most successful, one, they had a routine, but then they get to the point where they can have flexibility in their routine because they know there's not a fear that if I miss a day, it's going to turn into 2 days. It's like, now I can really listen to my body. With the social media, it sounds like I have some thoughts on that, but one, it sounds like you have social support around it, but you know how people go into it and you can tell what their motive is, like, look at me. I think if you go into that and you're genuinely like, hey, my motive is like, I want to hold myself accountable and I want to motivate other people, I think that's a pure motive. So I talk to people about, hey, you know, like if you post it on, you can tag me, and that's a little bit of accountability there too.
Right.
So maybe you'll get a fire emoji from me every once in a while, something like that. What do you think some of your biggest struggles have been with when you're trying to get into this consistency routine?
One of the biggest factors in the beginning was finding the balance, you know, because I'm at home with my kids and I homeschool them. So finding the balance to prioritize me so that I could be the best mom for them and not feeling guilty that I'm outside for an hour or whatever the time may be. But finding that balance and figuring out maybe not always an assigned time each day, because our days change, but making it understood between them and me that, you know what, when mom's out here doing this is her time and you have me the rest of the time. It took me a while to find that groove. It did. And once I was able to, I mean, it's just like a known thing now in the house, and it's become our norm. It's not, I think in the beginning it was kind of a novelty to them, you know, especially with all the workout equipment. It's kind of like a playground. So they've actually worked out with me sometimes. I know you've seen some of those videos. Yeah. And I think that helped tame it down. So now it's not so much, where's mom?
Yeah.
You know? That has helped a lot. And I recently started going on Tuesdays back to a program that I work with. And a friend of mine lives up near it, and she goes to a gym. So now we're meeting on Tuesdays to work out together.
That's
over
awesome.
There. So things like that, where I've just kind of been able to normalize it. And I think it took at least 6 months. I mean, because it was out of the norm for our house.
Yeah.
You know?
I would say and this is a super common thread in speaking with mothers of younger children, is that my job has always been to take care of these kids. That's priority number one. What I'm hearing from you is, one, you made the link that by taking care of myself, that's important. That also helps me be a better mom. But how did you, like, what advice would you give for other moms to get to where you are? Because they want to do it. It's just, I think the barrier is the mentality of, if I'm doing something for myself, I'm not doing something for them.
Right.
Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah. And I've had that conversation with several moms who keep saying, I keep saying I'll start tomorrow. I keep saying I'll show up on Monday. I'm like, just start with something. I just started literally walking 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you know, however I could do, because I was over 300 pounds when I started. I could only walk so much. Yep. But even with my time with my kids, if I could go do a 20-minute walk with them, we at least did something. And showing up and doing something was better than zero. And if I made it a smaller goal, it was more attainable, you know, versus, like you said earlier, if I were to try and jump into an Orange Theory class for an hour out of nowhere, I would have died. And then I wouldn't want to go back. Yeah. You know, so keeping the goal small and attainable and realistic, I think kept it easier to move forward. And, you know, if you felt good about yourself, and then eventually I could walk a mile, I could walk 2 miles, you know, and you saw that progress. So, I mean, I think keeping it realistic and not being so hard on yourself, giving yourself some grace, if you could show up for 20 minutes today, celebrate that and not make it, don't diminish it,
100%. I think you maybe read my book. I'm not plugging anything, but my framework for exercise is that, once you get motivated to start, if you want to continue, you need to have an immediate positive experience.
Yeah.
Right. And so after that if you don't have a good time, you're not going to go back to that thing. And so
Right.
after that, then it's like, how do we set up the systems to make sure I keep having positive experiences, I progress, and then I see results, which is something that you said. What other advice have you given to some of these moms? Because I'd really like to hear more about this, because I swear in our accountability groups, this is such a common thread. Yeah.
And I've caught on to that a few times that I've been able to be on the calls. And I know it's probably harder for people that work full-time jobs and whatnot. I don't have that experience. But I think it's important to remind yourself to be kind to you. Who better to be nice to than yourself?
Yeah.
And if you can celebrate the things you do get done instead of being harsh on, I didn't do my 30-minute circuit, or I didn't, do what you can instead of doing nothing. And, that do all or nothing mentality is too black and white for me. Like, I needed an in-between that could be like, all right, well, I still showed up today and I still walked my mile, or I still got on the treadmill, because our weather here is wonky. So, like, sometimes it was too cold or too hot. Like, instead of using those as excuses, I just problem solved it. Like, what can I do instead?
Yeah.
That's why I had gallons of water and
I know.
weights, because I hadn't bought any weights yet.
No,
like that,
I wonder where that mentality comes from, because a lot of people think, first, I need to do a lot. I need to do everything. I wonder where that comes from. That was maybe something that you had done in the past, where I started out, I needed to do a lot.
Yeah, I think that's what I grew up with, and I've heard just from other resources that it's a very American mentality.
Interesting.
It's not that way everywhere. That people don't even value just going for a walk. They don't think that's enough. Like, if you're not sore or exhausted, you didn't do enough. Well, that's not true. If you looked at my pattern of even the basic walks that I was doing, I at least was moving my body and was doing something, and it built my body up to be able to do more. But, in small steps.
Yep.
I think also our culture likes instant gratification.
Yeah, that might be something.
That's a struggle for people. I do have a different lifestyle than some people in the groups, that I don't track like my macros and things like that. I don't add that type of stress to my daily journey.
Yep.
And that has helped, because at some point I was doing that, and it was almost like a full-time job, trying to track my food, trying to track my exercise, and it became obsessive, and that wasn't fun.
Yep.
So like you said, when you take the fun element out of it, you don't want to do it. I eat everything in moderation. I enjoy my foods. I don't restrict myself. And I've still continued to lose weight and change my body regardless. So it may not be as quick as other people, but I'm still enjoying every day versus being stressed out.
That's perfect. Yeah. To what you said about tracking, I listened to this guy that I in my mind, I completely mesh financial advice with fitness advice too, because like what he says is set up the system such that everything that you're doing is automated, so that you don't have to worry about it. And to me, tracking your macros is the same as having a spreadsheet where you write down every single thing that you spent every penny on, and then it's like, this is annoying.
I had some app or something like that where it was too much, and it was adding to my stress.
Yep.
And I didn't want to do it. So what I focus on now is eating whole, real foods. My main focus is protein, because I also had gastric bypass over 10 years ago. So I have to get a certain amount of protein. And I love drinking water, so I don't have that problem. I know some people do. But really, that's it. I mean, I enjoy dessert every night. And I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Things like that, where I know I've moved my body enough that I can also still enjoy regular food and life.
Yeah. One thing I also heard, I want to go back to this, and I have a follow-up question too, is that the cool thing about fitness is the more you do it, the more it unlocks opportunities to do new fitness. So I start out walking. Okay, I'm becoming more fit. I can start doing weightlifting. now I can start lifting heavier things. I can try more challenging exercises. I wonder if as long as you're okay talking about it too, did your desire to become more fit, include and incorporate exercise, have an impact on the 1 year of sobriety?
Oh yeah.
Tell me more about
Definitely.
that.
I don't think I would have been as successful with my 1 year had I not had this focus. I think it's a good change of focus than before. But it really pushed me to stay healthy and sober. The mental clarity and how good I was feeling, the positive changes that I kept seeing, I would not have been able to do that before. Yeah. And I mean, that really was part of keeping me, other than there's other factors, my kids and things like that. But as far as the health journey, seeing success out of my hard work, I would not have seen if I was drinking before. So there's no reason to go backwards.
Exactly. I like this saying, we don't solve our problems, we outgrow our problems. Yeah, it sounds like that's exactly what happened. So what I'm kind of hearing from you is your journey was a little bit like this, is that, you build up the motivation, you started walking, we started slow. Then we had an enjoyable experience and we focused on what's next. What can I do next? And then you put yourself out there, which turned out to be like you also had a positive impact on other moms. So you had you had the social influence that was positive for you. Your social influence was positive on them. Do you have any recommendations for Sequence members for, how can, maybe they're at one stage in their exercise journey and it's the beginning stage, what advice do you have for them?
I think if you're in the beginning stages, like I said earlier, be kind to yourself, but show up and do what you can. It doesn't hurt to show up. Yeah. And usually once I was there, like at the park or whatever I was walking, I was more motivated to do more once I was there. Yeah. But and sometimes the mental game is the hardest part. You have to get past that barrier. Even if it's like, all right, just be quiet for a minute. We're going to show up and just start walking. Let's see how much we can get done. And then there were some days I didn't want to be there, but if I showed up and just started, then the next thing I knew, I walked 30 minutes. And then the next thing I knew, it was an hour. Yeah. And like you, when you jumped in my journey, you're like, well, just take your dumbbells with you to the park. Yeah. And I was like, why haven't I thought of that? But it made such a difference because even after my walk, then you have all those endorphins running. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can do my dumbbells here out in the sunshine. Just the simple things that made you happy is what helped. That's what pushed me, Yeah. And now I look forward to it every day. I look forward to it's like therapy. Yep.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The technique that we went over is called habit stacking. So it's like I'm already doing this. This is already the walking's already automatic. Yeah. So I want to do strength training. So because a lot of times the hardest part about starting anything is the momentum of getting started. So I'm already started. So now it's just like I don't stop. I just tack this on top of it.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah, called habit stacking. So you take something that you already do like consistently. I make my coffee. I have my first coffee. As soon as coffee is done, I go for a walk. And then it could be as soon as I'm done with the walk, I go grab my weights and do 20 minutes of strength training or something like that. So it's a good technique to use for folks.
It worked for me.
Yeah. So I think this is all really, really great advice. I love seeing your journey. The thing that I'm seeing is that it's stuck, which maybe that's going to be the name of these interviews. That's a bad name for interviews. It's stuck. Yeah. What is this about? Yeah. So, but that's what I like hearing is like you said, maybe like it feels weird if I didn't do it. I'm doing it for myself. I enjoy it. It's a part of who I am. So.
Well, and I can tell you, I've learned to listen to my body better.
Yes.
Like when I was on my vacation, a friend of mine had me go with them to Orange Theory just for fun.
Yep.
And I realized how much I did not like that scenario. It took my body over a day to recover.
Yep.
It felt super stressful for me.
Yep.
However, back home in my, with my weights, I can tell you, I can progress. I can probably up my weights a little bit, but enjoy it and not feel so run down. A little soreness is good, but the way I felt after Orange Theory was not but for me, my body was not okay with it.
Yep.
And that's the learning process. I could tell you now I could probably go do that walking path with no big deal. Mm-hmm. But before, that was a big deal for me. That was real hard to do.
Yep. enjoyment, focus on accumulating wins, focus on progression, and then we end up seeing the results, and that's quite motivating in itself. As soon as someone gets strong, they're like, "This is cool." Like, yeah, right?
Yeah.
I'm lifting more than what I was doing before. It's that's what I always tell people for exercise. What can we focus on that kind of progress outside of just great, you're losing weight, but can we focus on that kind of progress, because that's what will make it sticky. It's stuck. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But there's no going back from this.
Perfect.
That's it.
That's all I could dream to hear. So, yeah. Anything else you want to tell to Sequence members or anyone listening, Elizabeth?
Just help yourself, do it for you, and the rest will follow. I mean, It really will. You gotta get out there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having this chat with me.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching our interview. If you have any questions, please just drop them in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you can get more of these interviews. I do them on a weekly basis. Thanks.